Welcome back, everyone. Before we begin, don't forget to share your thoughts and the lessons you've taken from this story in the comments below. Also, make sure to like and subscribe. Now let's get started. He had no idea he was set to inherit $200 million. His wife left him because he was broke. 5 years later, she came back pleading for another chance. "You're a failure, Andre. I can't waste my youth here any longer. You'll never give me the life I deserve, and I won't die poor by your side." Those were the last words Monique Whitfield hissed at her husband before shoving divorce papers into his chest. With her suitcase in hand, she strode out confidently, abandoning not just her husband but also their 5-year-old son, all for the lure of wealth. She didn't know that the struggling mechanic she was leaving behind had just been named heir to $200 million that very same day. Rain battered the windows of the small garage on Elm Street, drumming like angry fists. Under the hood of a 2010 Civic, Andre Whitfield worked with the calm precision of a man used to salvaging miracles from scraps and worn-out parts. The wall clock blinked 11:47 p.m., another 16-hour shift. On his bench sat an old photo of 17-year-old Andre with his Uncle Leonard, propped beside a dented coffee tin. Next to it lay a sealed envelope from Benson Tate, attorneys at law, stamped urgent. His phone still displayed a missed call from the same firm earlier that day. Then came a text from his wife, Monique. Sharp as a nail through a tire. "We need to talk now." He drove home in silence, rain drumming on the Ford's roof, wipers squeaking like weary metronomes. The house was blazing with light. In the living room stood Monique, dressed in an emerald gown he'd never seen before. Her hair was flawless, her perfume rich, and in her manicured hands was a manila envelope. Her eyes were cold. "I didn't marry you to live in poverty," she said, every word crisp and cutting. "You're a failure, Andre. I won't waste my youth here. You'll never give me the life I deserve, and I refuse to grow old poor beside you." She slapped the divorce papers against his chest, sheets fluttering across the floor like startled birds. He opened his mouth, but no words came. "Monique, I work 18 hours a day for you and Caleb. We're so close to turning things around." She laughed thin, sharp, like breaking glass. "Your so-called corner is just a dead end." Her heels clicked down the hallway. Drawers slammed. Hangers scraped. Their little boy, Caleb, padded in wearing Superman pajamas and clutching a worn-out teddy. "Mommy, where are you going? Can I come?" Monique crouched down, her smile stiff. "Be good for Daddy." "Please don't go," he cried, clutching her dress. For just a second, her eyes flickered with doubt, but then she pulled away, her face hardening again. The suitcase wheels rumbled over the wood floor like a verdict. Headlights splashed across the yard as a sleek black Maybach rolled to a stop. The tinted glass hummed with money. A man's silhouette waited inside. The rear door swung open in silence. "Monique, at least tell me why," Andre said, his voice raw. "After everything, why this way?" "Because I deserve more than coupons and second-hand charity galas," she replied, stepping into the rain without looking back. "Because I refuse to rot in this prison." The Maybach door closed softly, final as a coffin lid. Caleb pressed his face to the screen door, watching the car vanish into the wet night. The house filled with the quiet sound of a boy's breaking heart. Andre scooped his son up, carried him to the couch, and held him through the silence. When Caleb finally drifted to sleep, Andre's eyes lingered on the scattered papers, the old photo of Uncle Leonard, and the blinking voicemail notification. He pressed play. "Mr. Whitfield, this is Harold Tate. We must discuss the estate of your uncle, Leonard Whitfield. Please come in tomorrow morning. It's urgent." Andre glanced at the sealed envelope, then at his sleeping child, then at the puddles on the floor that glistened like unshed tears. He felt as though everything precious had been ripped from him. What he didn't know was that fate had already begun to tip the scales in his favor. Some people leave for luxury. Others stay for love that can't be repossessed. By morning, the house was too quiet. Caleb's teddy lay abandoned on the rug like a witness. The storm had passed, but the air still carried the metallic scent of rain. Andre brewed coffee he never drank. He stared at the divorce papers, then at his son's cereal bowl, where cornflakes sagged in untouched milk. "Will Mommy call?" Caleb asked softly. "I don't know, buddy," Andre replied. "But I promise you this. You'll never go to bed wondering if you're loved. Not ever. He dressed Caleb, dropped him off at kindergarten with a hug that lingered a heartbeat longer, then drove downtown to Benson Tate's office. The conference room smelled faintly of lemon oil and long-won battles. Mahogany walls displayed framed certificates. A careful man with gentle eyes introduced himself. Harold Tate. Mr. Whitfield, I'm sorry for your loss. Loss? Andre echoed, caught off guard. He hadn't seen Uncle Leonard in years, not since a family feud. Tate slid a leather folder across the table. Your uncle passed away 3 weeks ago. He named you as his sole heir. Inside were numbers that looked unreal. Oil royalties, real estate, investments in technology funds. As of yesterday's market close, the estate is valued at roughly $200 million, Tate explained. Andre blinked. There must be a mistake. There isn't, Tate said firmly. But there is one condition. Your uncle's letter requires that this inheritance remain confidential for 12 months. He believed sudden wealth tests a man's character. He wanted you to prove yours before the world knew. Beneath the will lay a handwritten note in Leonard's familiar, angular script. Andre, money is both a loud friend and a cruel master. Be better than I was. Build something that lasts. Surround yourself with people who choose you. Shaken, Andre signed the papers. Gratitude, disbelief, and fear tangled in his chest. When he stepped outside, the city gleamed like wet chrome. But inside he felt a new gravity settle into his bones. Back at the shop, he sat behind the wheel, exhaling for the first time since the Maybach pulled away. That week he began making quiet, permanent moves. Opening holding companies, hiring a discreet CFO, paying months of rent in advance, securing Caleb's school tuition, even arranging counseling for his son. He called no one else. Not even a Monique. The divorce proceeded without him. A process server handed him papers at closing time. He didn't contest them. He wouldn't fight for a woman who had so clearly made her choice. 32 days later, the divorce was finalized. He was granted primary custody, and Monique was allowed supervised visitation, visits she never once used. At night, after bedtime stories and prayers, Andre sketched plans on yellow notepads. A second shop near the freeway, better equipment, profit sharing for his crew. Above his desk, Uncle Leonard's letter hung as a reminder. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away in Miami, Monique stepped into a marble-lined lobby on the arm of Preston Hale, the man in the Maybach. His penthouse overlooked Biscayne Bay, sparkling with temptation. He poured her champagne, indulged her hunger, and she flaunted diamond-studded wrists online to the same people who once mocked her. She told herself the ache would eventually fade. Back in Dallas, Caleb learned a different kind of promise. We don't give up on each other, Andre told him as they built a model plane. Engines might stall, but people shouldn't. On the fridge hung a kindergarten drawing, 3 stick figures beneath a smiling sun. One figure was missing now, but the sun still shined. The year of silence began. For Andre, the confidentiality clause wasn't a burden, it was a shield. He carried it like a tool belt. He kept the old Ford, patched the roof himself, expanded the shop quietly. The second location opened under a fresh LLC, without fanfare. Then came a third. He upgraded the lifts, paid wages above the standard, and introduced a simple benefits plan. Word spread the way good gossip does. That garage on Elm treats people fairly. The new one on Jefferson repairs what everyone else overlooks. He listened more than he talked. A retired banker, now his discreet chief financial officer, sketched a roadmap from lucky breaks to long-term stability. They shifted Leonard's oil profits into a balanced portfolio. They quietly bought land along stretches where highways would one day swell. They picked up minority shares in 2 rough-edged software ventures. Not flashy products, but ones that fixed costly problems. Andre pored over term sheets after Caleb was asleep, asking enough questions until he could explain them himself. On Sundays, he and Caleb grilled in the little backyard. They planted tomatoes and nicknamed the robin that stole them Leon. At bedtime, when Caleb's eyes shimmered with unspoken questions, Andre told him the truth. Mom made a choice. We make ours. We choose kindness, even when it stings. He backed those words with action. 9 months in, the Whitfield Foundation for Single Fathers quietly launched, covering legal aid, childcare stipends, and emergency rent. He funded it through a foundation branch, his name never attached. In counseling, Caleb's drawings began to carry fewer shades of gray. The glitter of Miami dulled. Preston's construction empire teetered like a shaky tower under leverage. Payments stalled. A lender's call cut through brunch. Preston hit mute and forced a smile too quickly. Monique kept posting. She had followers to entertain, though her captions carried a new tremor. She bought silence with returns that never showed. Back in Dallas, the 12-month mark neared. Harold Tate called Andre into a small conference room. The confidentiality clause ends next week. You decide how visible you want to be. Andre's reply surprised even himself. We keep living. But I'll choose one moment to plant a flag, something bigger than me. The flag came to him. One of those unflashy startups, an AI diagnostics platform for fleet repair, secured a national contract. His early stake, taken when the valuation raised no eyebrows, multiplied as the company set an IPO date. Tate's mouth tilted into a half-smile. When this price hits, your net worth passes $1 billion. Andre nodded slowly. Numbers don't hold, my son, when nightmares come. Let's remember that. The IPO roadshow lit up headlines. Andre stayed off camera, but decisions moved faster now. He purchased a closed-down trade school campus and rebuilt it as Whitfield Trades Academy, free for veterans and single parents. He met with city officials, always in the same off-the-rack boots. At home, Caleb, now 7, assembled a go-kart kit, tongue tucked in with concentration. You ever think about, getting married again? He asked without looking up. When the right person shows up, for both of us, Andre said. Not just me. That right person would come from a direction he didn't expect. A courthouse hallway. A pro bono clinic. A woman defending a single dad who had skipped work to protect his child from a bad situation. But not yet. In Miami, trouble stopped knocking and started kicking doors. Subpoenas landed. An agent's card slid beneath the door. Preston's grin thinned. Monique discovered one-way tickets to Puerto Rico in his desk, her name crossed out. That night, she feigned sleep and listened to the zipper of a suitcase whisper secrets. By morning, Preston was gone. She stood barefoot on marble that was never paid for, staring at a final notice. The view still glittered. Hunger does too, until it doesn't. 2 years stretched into 3. The IPO hit, bringing new math. The stake Andre had carefully carried past doubts, and delays vaulted his worth past $1 billion. Reporters came, curious about the anonymous backer of a meteoric rise. He let the calls ring unanswered. Headlines shifted. He pressed forward. And then he met Alicia Bennett, just as if fate had scripted it. In a courthouse hallway, sleeves rolled, hair loose at the edges, a sharp advocate with a warm laugh. He was there to observe a clinic his foundation funded. He left with new respect for the woman who told a judge, calm and steady, that law without mercy is just paperwork. He asked her to consult for the foundation. She said yes. Then no to dinner. Then yes to coffee. Then yes to letting Caleb show her how to change a tire in the shop bay. Alicia never flinched at grease or grief. She didn't care about net worth because she didn't know it. When she did learn, her gaze didn't shift. 2 years later, beneath an oak on a small hill outside the city, they married. Caleb, 10 by then, stood between them, holding the rings with bright eyes. Andre's work scaled. The auto shops grew into a multi-state network with apprenticeships and tuition credits. The Trades Academy celebrated its first graduating class. The mayor wept at the ceremony and tried to hide it. The foundation added daycare pods inside workplaces, because single parents can't work without safe childcare. It wasn't charity. It was infrastructure. Meanwhile in Miami, sirens found new tones. Federal charges shredded Preston's empire. Frozen assets turned luxury into dead weight. Monique watched a tow truck drag away a leased Lamborghini like a fallen gladiator. Credit cards sputtered with public declines. The concierge who once bowed now looked past her. One afternoon she found the penthouse door ajar. Drawers overturned. Safe emptied. Preston's cufflinks gone. On the counter a short note, "Don't call." She laughed once, sharp, disbelieving. then slid down the cabinet to the tile. She tried friends. Invitations had flowed as long as she sparkled. But sparkle costs. Dead is ugly. Calls slipped to voicemail. One woman finally answered, her words muffled, as if underwater. "I told you not to leave your son." The line went dead. In Dallas, Andre and Alicia strolled the campus at dusk, machines quiet around them. "Ever think of telling the whole story?" she asked. "Not to brag. To show what's possible." "It's not about me," he said. Then paused. "But it is about what Caleb sees. What kids like him see." A week later, his team pitched a public initiative big enough to raise that flag. $100 million for underfunded schools and after-school programs, built on partnerships with the city and 2 national nonprofits. It meant a press conference, cameras, his name. He didn't blink. Secrecy had sheltered him. Purpose would carry him. On the counter lay a magazine addressed from some list he never joined. Philanthropy Today. The cover teased, "The quiet billionaire reshaping Texas." He set it aside. Caleb picked it up and grinned. "Quiet billionaire, huh? Emphasis on quiet," Andre said with a smile. In Miami, Monique pawned a bracelet for less than a week's rent. Swallowing the shame because humiliation is costly too. On her cracked phone screen, a headline flashed she never expected. The day Andre stepped into the light was unrelentingly bright and Texan. At Dallas Executive Airport, reporters gathered in chaotic rows near a hangar draped with banners painted by children. 3 busloads of 5th graders waved hand-drawn signs. His secret had lasted for years. Until today. If the spotlight was the price of building futures, he would pay it. The jet door opened. Andre descended, steady as a man grounded in himself. Caleb followed, taller now, shoulders edging into adolescence. Alicia stepped into the sun beside them, carrying courtroom composure and backyard warmth. Cameras fired. Microphones leaned forward. A child's voice cut the air. "Thank you, Mr. Whitfield." Andre's face nearly cracked. "Mr. Whitfield, you've pledged $100 million to children's programs. Why now?" a reporter asked. "Because we keep calling kids the future while starving the present," he answered. "Because I was raised by people with grit but not much money. Because no child should ever grow up believing they are too costly to keep." "Is it true you're a billionaire?" another voice shouted. He didn't flinch. "Net worth is just numbers on a page. Real value is what you create and who you become." By noon, that sentence had already made headlines. Hundreds of miles away, Monique stood at an airport kiosk with a scuffed carry-on that had traveled through far nicer lobbies. She wasn't catching a flight. For weeks, she'd been crashing on a friend of a friend's couch, a favor about to run out. But airports had bathrooms, air conditioning, and the illusion that you belonged there if you walked quickly enough. Above a smoothie counter, a wall of televisions showed muted news. Dallas mechanic turned philanthropist pledges $100 million for education. On screen, Andre's face appeared beside Caleb's. And Monique blinked hard. She didn't recognize the man. He looked like the best version of who she once begged him not to become. Her throat locked up. She fumbled with her phone until she found a live stream where a reporter repeated the word she couldn't digest. Billionaire. The sound echoed inside the hollow rooms of her chest. She remembered the emerald dress, the Maybach door, the soft kiss on a child's forehead the night she walked away. She remembered convincing herself that love without money was a trap. And she remembered the trap closing. Then came the next images. Alicia at his side, her hand on Caleb's shoulder, the easy symmetry of a family built not on hunger, but on choice and service. And Monique sagged against a pillar. A businessman muttered an apology as he hurried past to catch his flight. With the rent money she had saved, she bought a standby ticket to Dallas. She refused to think past the gate. On the tarmac, Andre crouched with 3 little girls who wanted to be mechanics, astronauts, and judges. "Why not all 3, he told them. To a boy who stuttered, he said, "Engines are patient. Good people are too." When the event wrapped, Andre climbed into a black SUV with Alicia and Caleb. As they drove past the old neighborhood, his gaze flicked toward a tiny house still standing. A single mother lived there now, quietly supported by his foundation. He glanced once, then looked away. That evening, the first message arrived from an unknown number. I'm in Dallas. Please, I need to see you. Andre stared at it a long time before setting the phone down. Then he helped Kayla with algebra. He washed pans while Alicia dried. An hour later, another text appeared. I'm outside the gate. Andre didn't sigh, didn't brace himself. He simply straightened, like a man about to lift a heavy weight that no longer belonged to him. The Whitfield estate wasn't the old house rebuilt. It was a different world entirely. Live oaks framed a circular drive where the light made glass shimmer like water. Through the iron gates, cameras watched arrivals, not to intimidate, but to protect what had been carefully built. A taxi idled by the call box, and Monique stepped out thinner, older, not from birthdays but from years. Her suitcase thumped against the ground like an anchor. The intercom crackled. State your name and purpose. It's Monique, she said, then added the last name she had given up. Whitfield. I was his wife. Silence. The gate motor groaned, but it did not open. Andre walked down the drive, slow and measured, stopping just beyond the iron. Caleb and Alicia stood on the porch, not hiding, not approaching. Hello, Monique, Andre said. Her grip tightened on the suitcase handle, as if it was the only thing keeping her upright. I made a terrible mistake. The tears came fast, messy, uncurated. I was wrong. About you, about what truly matters. Please, for Caleb's sake. Don't use his name as a key, Andre said softly. You left him crying at a door for a car. That was your choice. We lived with it. We grew from it. She pressed her forehead to the cold iron, like someone confessing. I don't want your money. I just want to be his mother again. I want the chance to say I'm sorry. Caleb stepped forward. 2 small steps, enough that Alicia's hand could still rest on his shoulder. At 10 years old, his eyes were already older than his age. I remember enough, he said, steady. You're the woman from my nightmares. Alicia is my mom. And Monique crumpled, knees on gravel, palms open. I deserve that, she whispered. I deserve worse. Punishment isn't our work, Andre said. Protection is. He gestured toward the security guard who had appeared, silent as a shadow. You won't be mocked. You won't be harmed. But you won't be let in either. Her head lifted, anger sparking, then fading out. Do you feel nothing? I feel plenty, Andre replied. Grief for the woman I once married. Gratitude for the man you're leaving pushed me to become. Pride in our son. Love for my wife. Relief that the person who valued me least no longer decides my worth. The guard approached gently, voice calm. Ma'am, we can arrange a shelter or call you a cab. Wherever you need to go. And Monique's eyes searched Alicia's face, as though the answer to some unspoken question might be written there. But Alicia's gaze held no gloating, only a firm boundary and a steady care for the boy beside her. That, more than the mansion or the gates, broke something Monique had been holding together with stubbornness and story. Andre, she tried one last time. If there's any space left in your heart. There is, he said. It's full. The live oak shifted in the breeze. From inside the house, a timer chimed for something simple and sacred, like bread. The guard opened the taxi door. And Monique stood, her dignity fragile as eggshell. She climbed inside. The car pulled away. On the porch, Andre turned to Caleb. You okay? Caleb nodded, his voice lighter, more like a child's again. Yeah. Can we finish the go-kart? Alicia smiled. Wash up first. Andre lingered for a moment, looking back, not with regret, but to mark the end of a chapter. Some stories don't need revenge. They need clarity. He wrapped one arm around his son and the other around his wife. Inside, the house smelled of cinnamon and motor oil from the garage project. The sunlight poured warm across the kitchen table, a witness to countless small mercies. True wealth, Andre now understood, wasn't in the jets or the checks. It was in the people who stood by you when storms came, who built alongside you when applause was scarce, who chose a kind of love you couldn't rent. Family first, always. Everything else is noise. If you felt this story, like, comment, and share it with your friends. Subscribe and hit the notification bell, so you never miss another powerful story.